There is a quiet kind of man who moves through the world without demanding attention, yet somehow commands it anyway. A man who does not need to raise his voice to be heard, nor exaggerate his presence to be felt. The Sigma male, often misunderstood, frequently underestimated, carries a presence that is both calming and deeply magnetic, like still water that somehow reflects everything around it. This magnetism isn't born from theatrics, artificial confidence, or a desire to impress. It is the product of deep, internal order, the kind that only comes from a man who has spent time alone with his thoughts, confronted his own weaknesses, and built himself in silence. He knows what he values, what he will tolerate, and what he will quietly walk away from. That inner clarity radiates outward even when he says very little. Women notice this even when they cannot explain it. They may simply describe him as different, steady, or hard to read. But what they're really sensing is structure beneath the surface. A man whose emotions do not spill everywhere. A man who is not easily thrown off balance. Modern society tends to reward noise, the loudest personality, the most dominant display, and the most exaggerated performance of masculinity. But Sigma men move differently. They carry a withdrawn strength, a kind of inner sovereignty that needs no audience to validate it. They do not need applause to feel real, and they do not measure their worth by how many people are watching. While others push themselves into the spotlight, the Sigma male relaxes into the background, not because he lacks ability, but because he has no need to compete for a stage he never wanted. He would rather observe, understand, and act with precision than perform for approval. This calm detachment creates a contrast that is deeply appealing. Because when a man is no longer trying to prove himself, his presence becomes rare. When he is no longer seeking validation, his silence becomes powerful. And when he is no longer chasing approval, his energy becomes something people, especially women, are drawn to without hesitation. This video is not about glorifying mystery for the sake of theatrics, nor is it about placing the Sigma male above other archetypes. Rather, it is about exploring the subtle psychological patterns and observable behaviors that create a pull women rarely resist. It is about understanding why certain men who walk with quiet confidence, men who prioritize internal stability over external noise, become so compelling in everyday life, not because they intend to charm anyone, but because the stability they carry is a refuge in a restless world. So today we will explore 6 deep, lesser-known truths about Sigma males. The truths women notice, respond to, and often find surprisingly irresistible. Let us take our time, move slowly, and study each one with clarity. Number 1, his energy is calm, not controlling. Women respond strongly to a man whose presence is steady. It's not about being loud, dominant, or forcefully masculine. It's about the energy you bring into a room, the subtle but unmistakable stability that tells others, without a single word, that you are anchored. When a man carries himself with centeredness, he becomes a refuge in a world that is constantly shifting. People feel it before they understand it. Women, especially, are deeply attuned to the emotional climate around them, and they respond powerfully to a man who remains grounded even when life becomes chaotic. The Sigma male's quiet nature signals a form of emotional regulation that modern psychology consistently associates with reliability, safety, and maturity. Emotional regulation isn't about suppressing feelings. It's about managing internal reactions in a way that creates clarity instead of confusion. A Sigma man doesn't explode when frustrated, and he doesn't crumble when things go wrong. He processes, he observes, and then he acts slowly, deliberately, and with intention. This self-control creates an atmosphere of emotional safety, and emotional safety is one of the strongest predictors of attraction and long-term connection. When a woman senses that a man won't panic, lash out, or lose himself in impulsive reactions, she can breathe around him. She can be vulnerable. She can trust. It is not the silence itself that draws her in, but what the silence represents: strength, inner order, and a mind that is not easily disturbed. In a world full of men reacting impulsively, a calm man stands out without even trying. Most people operate on emotional autopilot, triggered by stress, driven by ego, and thrown off by small inconveniences. When everyone is loud, the quiet man becomes noticeable. When everyone is fighting to be right, the man who listens becomes magnetic. When everyone is trying to impress, the man who is simply present becomes unforgettable. His composure isn't an act, it's a lifestyle shaped by introspection, boundaries, and self-respect. The Sigma male does not seek validation, and that independence makes his calm even more profound. He is not controlled by the environment, he regulates himself. This independence is rare, and anything rare naturally becomes valuable. Women aren't drawn to Sigma males because they're mysterious. They're drawn because Sigma males bring a sense of peace that most people never experience. In the Sigma man's stillness, she finds clarity. In his steadiness, she finds stability. In his regulated presence, she finds the freedom to relax. It is not the volume of a man that determines his impact, but the depth of his presence. And the Sigma male's presence is deep, steady, and unmistakably powerful. Number two, he is independent without being distant. Sigmas value solitude, but not as an escape. Many people misunderstand this part of the Sigma male's nature. They assume he withdraws because he is tired of people, fed up with the world, or uninterested in connection. But for the Sigma, solitude is not a hiding place. It is a maintenance ritual. It is the quiet workshop of his mind where he restores order, sharpens clarity, and realigns himself with the core principles that guide his life. Where others run to distractions to avoid their thoughts, the Sigma walks toward his inner world with full awareness. Solitude becomes the environment where he processes the subtle details of life, the patterns he noticed in people, the changes in his environment, and the shifts in his ambitions. He uses silence the way a craftsman uses tools, deliberately, with focus, and with respect for what it creates. In his solitude, he filters out the noise, the expectations, and the emotional pressure that society constantly pushes onto men. This inner space keeps him grounded and emotionally precise. And this is where something interesting happens. Women notice. Women intuitively recognize this independence as a form of self-leadership. The Sigma's relationship with solitude tells them he is not a man controlled by impulse. He is not reactive, clingy, or desperate for attention. Instead, he moves at the steady pace of a man who rules himself, a rare and magnetic quality in the modern world. To a woman, a man who values solitude signals emotional maturity. It shows he can step away to regulate himself instead of projecting his chaos onto others. It shows he can maintain stability without needing constant validation. And most importantly, it shows he has a life, a purpose, and an internal compass that isn't easily swayed. This level of independence creates a subtle gravitational pull. Not because the Sigma tries to attract attention, but because he doesn't need it. His stillness reveals strength. His boundaries reveal confidence. His comfort with his own company reveals a man who cannot be manipulated through loneliness, flattery, or pressure. Women are drawn to this energy because it represents security without control, freedom without distance, and depth without drama. A Sigma's solitude becomes proof that he is self-sustained, a man who can offer connection without losing his center. That is the irony most people miss. The Sigma's quiet time, which looks like separation, actually enhances his ability to connect in a meaningful and authentic way. He steps back not to escape life, but to return to it with clarity, strength, and intentionality. And that is why women find him so irresistibly compelling. Number 3, he thinks before he speaks. This single trait creates trust, a kind of trust that cannot be faked, rehearsed, or manufactured. It is the quiet discipline of a man who refuses to rush. A Sigma male does not hurry to fill silence, convince others, or prove his worth through excessive explanation. He understands something most people overlook. Silence is not a void to escape, but a space to understand. And in that space, his presence becomes undeniable. When a Sigma male speaks, it is never to impress. His words come from reflection, not impulse. He listens fully before responding. He observes the energy in the room. He reads the subtle cues, tone shifts, body language, pauses, and he lets his mind settle before he offers anything. This is not hesitation. This is intention. It is the difference between reacting quickly and responding wisely. Women feel the difference immediately. They may not describe it in words, but they experience it in their bodies. A man who is comfortable in silence signals emotional maturity. A man who does not need to dominate the conversation signals inner confidence. And a man whose words come from thoughtful reflection communicates safety, stability, and self-control without ever having to boast. Most men talk to be heard. A Sigma talks only when he has something worth saying. Women respect this deeply because it shows he is not driven by ego or insecurity. He does not try to impress her with unnecessary stories. He does not try to win her approval. He does not chase validation. Instead, he gives her the rare experience of being truly heard, understood, and acknowledged without judgment, without pressure, and without agenda. In a world full of noise, a calm man becomes magnetic. The Sigma male's measured communication creates a subtle emotional gravity. People feel drawn to him because he brings clarity where others bring chaos. He grounds the moment simply through his presence. Women trust him because they sense he is not pretending. His silence is authentic, and his words are sincere. He will not say things just to sound good or get a reaction. His truth is steady even when it is quiet. This is why conversations with a Sigma male feel peaceful, reassuring, and genuine. He does not overwhelm. He invites. He does not persuade. He reveals. He does not rush. He allows things to unfold naturally. Trust is born not from what he says, but from how he says it, slowly, thoughtfully, and with intention. And in that gentle pace, women discover something rare. A man who chooses meaning over noise, depth over performance, and authenticity over approval. Number 4, he has an internal moral code, not a social persona. Unlike many men who unconsciously shift themselves to fit into social groups, Sigma males move through life with a rare, grounded, internal consistency. They do not soften their edges to make others feel comfortable, nor do they contort their identity just to blend in. Their personality is not a flexible mask they change depending on who is watching. It is a steady truth shaped by introspection, personal experience, and a clear understanding of their values. Most people adjust themselves based on surroundings, approval, or external pressures. They drift, sometimes without even realizing it, because they fear rejection or believe acceptance must be earned through conformity. The Sigma male, however, stays rooted. His worldview does not rise and fall with trends, group expectations, or the emotional climate around him. He is guided by an internal compass that has been deliberately refined over time. This stability is not stubbornness or ego. It is clarity. It is the quiet strength of a man who knows who he is, even when the world tries to pull him in multiple directions at once. This consistency creates a powerful emotional gravity. In a society where many are unpredictable, easily swayed, or constantly reinventing themselves, the Sigma male's steadiness becomes magnetic. Women naturally feel a sense of security around a man who holds firm to his identity. His presence becomes a psychological anchor, a signal of emotional maturity, confidence, and inner depth. A man who knows himself is easier to trust, not because he is flawless, but because he is emotionally dependable. There is no confusion about who he'll be tomorrow, and no mixed signals to decode. Interacting with him brings a sense of calm rather than uncertainty. This quiet reliability is profoundly attractive. It creates an environment where women feel relaxed, understood, and emotionally safe. And that safety comes not from control, but from self-mastery. In a world full of men performing for approval, the Sigma's authenticity stands out. His alignment between inner truth and outward behavior draws people to him, effortlessly, sincerely, and with a depth that cannot be imitated. Number 5, he is comfortable with emotional depth without oversharing. Sigma males are profoundly introspective, and this quiet inward awareness shapes nearly every part of their emotional identity. They take the time to understand what they feel, why they feel it, and how those emotions influence their decisions. But unlike people who express every internal shift for validation or attention, the Sigma male processes his emotions privately. He doesn't hide them out of fear. He simply doesn't believe that every feeling needs to be performed publicly. This creates a rare kind of balance, emotional depth without emotional chaos. He can feel intensely without becoming overwhelmed, and he can care deeply without losing himself in the process. His emotional world is organized, steady, and self-regulated. This is why he rarely reacts impulsively. When something challenges him, he pauses, reflects, and responds with intention rather than instinct. Women often misinterpret this trait in other men as aloofness or secrecy, but with a Sigma, it registers as maturity. His calm emotional presence signals stability, self-awareness, and discipline. He's not withholding to create mystery. He's simply not dependent on emotional theatrics to prove that he feels something. And here is what women quietly notice. A man who understands himself can understand others. A man who doesn't lose control of his own emotions won't lose control in a relationship. A man who does not demand attention becomes more intriguing, not because he's distant, but because he's grounded. Ultimately, his introspection becomes a form of emotional leadership. He brings clarity instead of confusion, depth instead of drama, presence instead of noise. Number 6, his silence is intentional, not passive. A Sigma male doesn't stay quiet because he is unsure. His silence is not hesitation, nor is it a lack of confidence. Instead, his quietness is a deliberate choice, a tool he uses to understand the deeper layers of any moment. While others rush to fill the air with noise, the Sigma settles into stillness. He observes, he evaluates, he studies not just words but also tone, intention, and the hidden motives that linger beneath the surface. This kind of presence creates a different kind of influence, because when a Sigma speaks, he is not guessing, he is responding with clarity, shaped by careful perception. His words come from understanding, not impulse. And that makes his responses unusually meaningful. People feel the weight of his insight, the precision of his thoughts, and the calm authority in his tone. Women, especially, find this profoundly attractive, even if they don't always articulate why. His silence feels grounded, not passive. His presence feels controlled, not cold. There is a quiet intensity in a man who pays attention, who listens fully and who doesn't need to dominate a room to feel secure in himself. In a world where many react before thinking, a Sigma male does the opposite. His restraint signals depth. His silence reveals intelligence. His thoughtful responses expose an inner strength that is both rare and magnetic. He speaks less, but when he does, it matters. And that is why his quiet confidence draws others in without effort. In a world overflowing with noise and performance, the Sigma male chooses a different path. He does not compete for attention or validation. Instead, he moves through life with intention, discipline, and a steady confidence that speaks louder than any display. His strength isn't crafted through tactics or charm. It is shaped in the quiet spaces where he builds his character when no one is watching. What makes him compelling is the consistency he carries, even when others lose their footing. It is the inner order he maintains, the self-respect he protects, and the quiet standards he refuses to lower. Women may feel drawn to this presence, but the deeper truth is timeless. A Sigma male becomes magnetic because he is complete within himself. As you continue your journey, remember, real masculinity doesn't need spectacle. Walk with intention, speak with purpose, and let your quiet strength attract what truly belongs in your life.